Hello, my name is Tuomas Granlund, and today I will be presenting our paper on medical device cybersecurity compliance in EU. This presentation is structured as follows. First, I will talk about background and common challenges that manufacturers are facing today. Then I present our approach for the cybersecurity compliance, and then I will draw some conclusions. So, the background. Medical device development is highly regulated in European markets, and the regulations aim to ensure safety and effectiveness of the devices. In this regard, software development is no exception, because software with an intended medical use is considered as a medical device as such. So before placing the devices on the European Union market, a device must have a CE mark. And this CE marking is a manufacturer's claim that the product meets all relevant EU regulatory requirements. The EU regulatory framework is currently undergoing a change, and the new regulations take a more explicit position on devices' cybersecurity aspects. So in practice, it means that cybersecurity is addressed from a broad perspective in this new legislation. One important document to mention is MDG guidance for cybersecurity for medical devices. So that's one important guidance document available at the moment. There are some common challenges that manufacturers are facing. There is a gap between the new requirements and the existing security implementations. Safety risks emerging from cybersecurity dimension, those risks should already be appropriately managed today. But we have found out that many manufacturers seem to have some shortcomings in their security processes and the culture. The second challenge is related to identification of relevant cybersecurity requirements. So the EU regulatory framework is some level it's really complex, and the requirements concern many interconnected processes, and the requirements are divided into different sections of different documents. And finally, implementing security actions in required processes can be challenging, because there's a development and manufacturing, and also post-market surveillance must be taken into account. So manufacturers need resources with in-depth knowledge about cybersecurity. Towards cybersecurity compliance. First element is risk relationship between safety and security. So we need to understand this concept of risk relationship between safety and security in order to be able to create an effective cybersecurity risk management process implementations. Medical device risks are typically managed in accordance with risk management standard. So as a result, the perspective tends to focus solely on safety-related risks, meaning risks that affect the physical safety of the patients or the users. But the new regulations require a broader view on risk to address the new security requirements. There are three main types of risks. There are security risks without a safety impact, there are security risks with a safety impact, and finally, safety risks without relation to security. Aligned safety and security risk management processes. Safety risk management process is one of the core processes of the medical device manufacturing, and one can argue that everything that is done within the quality management in the medical device manufacturing is done to control risks of the device. So it's essential that the risk management process is working efficiently. And due to broader perspection of risk, a separate companion process is recommended for security risks. The two processes differ in accordance to the nature of the risk that they control, and we want to ensure complete and consistent security management. They need to be well aligned, because if security risk has a safety impact, it will be propagated as an input to the safety risk evaluation. And similarly, as new risk controls, they may introduce new risks, so the impacts must be analyzed from both safety and security perspectives. Secure design and development lifecycle. Security risk management is an integral part of the secure development lifecycle. Potential security threats need to be identified with a systematic approach, such as threat modeling. In practice, in-depth security expertise is needed to capture all relevant security aspects fully. Medical device manufacturers typically have their development processes implemented according to the standard 62304, and it is highly recommended to extend the existing development processes with the cybersecurity activities. In fact, this approach is supported by the forthcoming standard 8001/5/1. Otherwise, the aspects related to security design and development lifecycle are already familiar from other domains. Post-market cybersecurity activities. The new regulations require a more proactive approach to post-market surveillance. In general, a number of safety-related hazards of medical device, they will stay relatively stable over time. But this same does not hold when considering cybersecurity threats. So in this sense, post-market cybersecurity activities, they need special consideration. The key to efficient process is identifying new changes in security environment proactively and resolving the issues timely, yet without compromising safety or compliance. Secondly, we need fast incident response and vulnerability remediation. We need to share cybersecurity related information across the different stakeholders. And we need to update our risk management and technical documentation based on the new identified information. Then drawing some conclusions. In our paper, we identified the most essential sources for regulatory requirements and guidelines currently available. We propose an approach that can be used to explain the most fundamental aspects of cybersecurity compliance. First, the foundations of medical device cybersecurity compliance are built on the risk relationship between safety and security. Second, an effective risk management approach can be derived from separate but well-aligned safety and security risk management processes. Third, cybersecurity is implemented in practice within a well-controlled, secure design and development process. Finally, medical devices cybersecurity aspects must be considered throughout the whole life cycle of the device. We feel that there is a call for action. Manufacturers need to improve their culture of cybersecurity and implement the new requirements in their processes. And the expectations of the regulatory authorities need to be expressed more clearly. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Tuomas, for your paper. Okay, it's an interesting work. Okay, please let your comments or questions in the chat. Meanwhile, I, I wanted to discuss something with you, Tuomas,
Okay.
regarding what do you think about the new scenario of medical Internet of Things and those devices that have some software running into them, and that software is connected in some ways with some service into the cloud, connected to the cloud, and in some ways that software as a service are being updated continuously, modified in some ways. And how do you think this security and safety management will work in that scenario that it's less controller in some way?
Okay. The question, I think it's pretty hard. That's like, first of all, I'm not sure if I have ever seen that kind of medical device yet. I know that there's some that kind of machines in some hospitals, and there's some kind of IT network that is separated for their use. That's one of the practical examples that I can come up with. But of course, that's the first thing we need to consider: the network. It cannot be open to public. That's for sure, and all the interfaces are something that we need to protect those. I think those are the first issues that come up to my mind. But this is something that we need to consider and to do threat analysis to capture all those security threats that are present in that kind of setup, and then we can think about the mitigations for those threats.
Thank you, Tuomas. Ita have a question for you. Okay, Ita say, thank you for your interesting presentation. You mentioned about manufacturers implementing new regulations. If we think about software, how can software development companies implement the new regulations?
Well, that's a question, and thank you for that. And it's an issue that we are struggling as a manufacturer like every day. But one for that is to look those international standards and start there. So when I think we are in really good situation when we get the harmonized standards against the new regulations, and we know a little bit more detailed requirements, and when we can fulfill those, we are in good shape, considering the overall regulatory framework. I mentioned this one standard, ISE 80001/5/1, which is for cybersecurity lifecycle management in software context, and that's really good standard for being in compliance with the regulations.
Okay, thank you so much, Tuomas. Well, Frances has another question.
Okay.
She said, you explain well the connection between cybersecurity and safety risks, but can you explain more about the difference in the nature of the risk? Example, how one can predict the risk likelihood?
Well, yeah. When considering software risks, cybersecurity or patient safety risks, the likelihood consideration is extremely hard. And for that reason, one of the practical tools is to consider that the likelihood is 100%. It will happen at some time. And so on mitigating the, but I that for for like how to estimate the likelihood in before we can use some models afterwards, but beforehand it can be really difficult.
Okay, thank you, Tuomas. Well, James Weber has another question. Okay. You suggest that cybersecurity compliance should be based on safety risk assessment as linked to security threats. This appears to work well when looking at the integrity and availability aspects of security. However, what about the confidentiality aspect? It doesn't really link to safety, but it still appears to be relevant with respect to cybersecurity.
Yeah, and this is one of the new concepts in new regulations. Our approach is to like present a like companion process for the security. These security risks can, of course, include data security issues. So that's one good an example of the type of the risk directly related to safety, but it needs to be taken into account also in medical device development nowadays. I hope that I answered to this question.
Okay, James, that answered your question.
I would like to add one thing. It seems that I have forgotten mention. This paper is of course a joint work, and it's joint work between myself and Mr. Juha Vedenpää from Solita and Dr. Vlad Stirbu, who is on floor next, and Professor Tommi Mikkonen from Helsinki University. I don't understand why I failed to mention this in my presentation. Sorry, guys.
Thank you so much, Tuomas. Well, do you have any questions? Another question? I think that. Okay, just to finalize, it's more also a discussion here. Do you consider the new agile methods as DevOps could affect secure or safety design and development process of medical software?
Yeah, this is something that we have been researching in our research project called Ahmed. I guess Vlad will mention this also in his presentation next. And yeah, we have researched this and published a few articles and thought how DevOps methods could be used in regulated environment. For example, in medical device development, and I think we have some pretty good results, and we are doing more work related to this, and hopefully publish something more during this year.
Okay, thank you so much, Tuomas. Could you please let some link in the chat to address that other publication? Maybe some attendees are wondering how DevOps and new agile methods could be adopted or intersected with this secure and safety management process. Okay, so yeah. Thank you so much again, and
thank you.
Well, let's continue with the next presentation.